Hey, you guys, settle in and enjoy the latest from Skip to Saturday. Hello, everyone. I hope you guys are having a great week so far. I'm still congested, unfortunately. I just want to quickly mention before I dive into today's episode that if you haven't listened to any of the previous episodes, I would suggest doing that before you tune into this episode, as well as episode 11. Episode 11 and 12 are season recaps, so you won't know exactly what I'm talking about unless you guys go back and listen from the beginning of this season. I, for some reason, am really digging my sick voice. When I was editing episode 11, I was like, I like my sick voice better than my normal voice. And it reminded me of that scene in Friends. I know, like, the world is split between hating Friends and loving the show. There's this episode where Phoebe gets sick. She plays a guitar and sings, right? And she feels like she sounds better and sexier when she's sick. And then when she gets better, she hates that. And Monica gets sick. So Phoebe wants to get sick again, and she starts to do a lot of little things here and there to hopefully catch the flu again. And she accuses Monica for taking her flu from her. It's a funny episode. Like, she's picking up the tissues from the ground and stuffing them in her pocket so she could use them, hopefully to catch the cold again. Or she will lick the soup that she gives Monica. She licks the rim of it, hopefully trying to catch whatever she has as well so she could sound sexy again. The reason why she thinks that she sounds much sexier with her sick voice is because the turnout of like how many people come watch her sing is much higher compared to when she sounds normal. So that's why, just to make it sense for you. So when I was editing the last episode, I was like, I am really digging this voice of mine. But it's getting annoying because I can't breathe. So I'm kind of getting over it, to be honest. So I'm going to pick up right where I left off from the last episode, which was episode 5. I do want to mention, because I didn't clarify this when I was talking about the intro, the whole distribution incident. So basically, I'm not stupid. I just want to clarify that. Basically, when you upload the episode, right, all the details that go for that one episode, for example, this episode, episode 12, there's this one page where you upload the audio, the description of the episode, the season and the episode, the numbers, the title, and the keywords and anything extra. That is all on one page, right? However, when you are supposed to distribute the show, and you do that in the very beginning, and you don't have to do that over and over again, but when you go and distribute the show, that's on a whole separate tab. So I wasn't aware of that. I just thought everything that's on that one page, and you publish it, you schedule it and publish it, that I was set to go. So I just scheduled it and knew that it was going to be published at 9 o'clock in the morning on a Thursday. And then I was just kind of chilling. And then it was only until my friend told me, like, I can't find it. And that's when I realized that to distribute the entire show, you've got to visit a different tab and do your thing. And then the episode will show up on those platforms that you want your podcast to be on. So for episode 6, Cutting Ties, the thing that I left out was that it was crazy. I should have left it in, but basically last March, April, towards the end of March, April, I was in London at that time. And before then, she kept popping up in my mind. And I don't know why. When she started to pop up in my mind, I started to think like, oh, I know what she's doing with her life. Is she married? Does she have kids? Is she still living in San Jose? Stuff like that. And then I was in London and I got a message from her on Instagram. And she basically said, hey, your reel popped up in my Explore page. I wanted to see how you're doing. I remember reading it. I was like, holy shit, that's crazy, because I was just thinking about her and I didn't respond. And it's because, like, I read that message like 2 o'clock in the morning. And I was like, you know what? I will respond later. And a part of me was like, should I respond? I wasn't sure if I wanted to either. She didn't know I read her message because I didn't accept her message at that time. I was like, when I get back to the States, I will read it, I'll accept it, and message her back if I feel like it. However, when I did go back and I was looking for her message, it wasn't there. So I feel like she probably deleted it and I don't know why, but it wasn't there anymore. I tried finding it, but it wasn't there. So I feel like she probably unsent it. So that happened. Episode 7, London Diaries with Mark Hersidou. You guys all know who that is. He was so happy when I asked him to be a guest on the show. And then he also pitched me different episode topics that we could do together. So I'm like, this man wants to be my co-host, literally, because he was really, really excited. I don't know if I'm going to have him on season 2. I'm still thinking about that. But if I do, there's a whole bunch of stuff that we could talk about, which would be really good, I think. But I haven't decided if I want to bring him back for season 2. There's a lot I cut out of this episode because my dad would go off track. You guys know that the entire episode was about London, right? London Diaries. The whole purpose of that episode was to talk just about London and our experience there. And then he brought up this whole incident that I had in Italy where I was running away from the pigeons. So basically what had happened was, and this is the part that I cut out, when we were in Italy, there were so many pigeons and I would run across from one place to another until I had some shelter because I was so afraid of getting pooped on. I don't mind birds walking around. It's when they're flying that I have a problem with because you just never know when they're going to take a shit on you. Just the other day, literally, I was walking to Target and this bird was flying and I kept telling myself, like, you need to get over this fear of like getting shit on or shot on. And this bird was flying, and I was like, you know what? Don't mind it. It's just doing its own thing. Just go to Target, it'll be fine. It literally dropped a deuce 2 feet from me. I heard the splatter, and I was like, this is exactly why I do not like being around birds when they're flying. So when we were in Italy, I was really terrified of getting shit on me. Now, I wear a turban, if you guys don't know, and when you're on vacation, the last thing you want to do is wash your turban there. Like, I don't have the proper equipment to wash my turban, and I do not want to deal with that. Obviously, I've learned to bring backups with me just in case, right? But he brought that up and he was making fun of me for like running around Italy because I was so afraid of birds. I'm not afraid of birds, I'm afraid of birds when they're airborne. And this fear started when my sister, back in high school, we were going to the same school. It was during lunch break and the bell rang for us to go to our periods, to the last period. As she was walking, a seagull took a shit on her backpack. And I saw it happen. And I could not stop laughing though. But it was also terrifying because, like, who expects that? I never saw someone get assaulted by a bird before. So after that happened, I was like, oh my God, like, that's possible. Like, I had to be really careful even at school. So, like, I would avoid going to areas where there was a lot of birds. And if I saw a bird flying, I would make sure that I would not be underneath it. I would change directions. So ever since then, I've, made sure to like stay away from birds when they're flying. And then I did get pooped on once when I was going to the gym. I got out of my car and I was walking over to the gym. And it was like a long walk because the car park was filled with cars. So I had to park far away. As I'm walking, my hand is out. Like, I don't know why my hand was sticking out. I was carrying my water bottle and my phone in my other hand. And my right hand was sticking out. I don't know what I was doing with it, but a bird flew by and it took a shit and it landed right in my hand, in the palm of my hand. And I was like, oh my God, that is disgusting. And then there was a time when we went to Italy where we get to Venice and we're about to have the time of our life. And there's so many pigeons around, and some are flying and some are not. And they're just like, looking for food. I see this pigeon fly by my mom, right? I thought my mind was playing tricks on me, and I saw the bird take shit. But maybe I was just making it up in my head. So I was like, it's probably nothing. But then I was like, you know what? Let's just see. And I told my mom to turn around. I feel like there's probably something on you. I'm not 100% sure, but I think. And then when I made her turn around, there was bird poop dripping down the side of her turban. So I've had enough experiences to know that it's possible and I could be the next victim. I do not want to be the next victim. So when I was running around St. Mark's Square, I was doing it for a good reason. I just did not want a bird taking a shit on me. So he talked about that and I took that out because I was just like, we're sticking to London. That's not a part of London. So that has to take place in a different episode, but I've shared it with you guys now. So that was for episode 7. In episode 8, we have an expiration date. This episode was inspired by my nephew, as you guys know. I was gonna share some funny things kids have said or done at the end of the episode, and I forget why I didn't add that into the episode. However, I will share those little stories with you guys now. Kids have no filter, by the way. So the first one, my friend's little cousin was giving us all Pokemon names. When he got to my biggest friend, he said, "And you can be Pokemon Stadium." That's so sad. I let my niece out of her car seat and said, "You're free." She responded, "No, I'm 3.5." She was 3.5 years old. That wasn't as funny as the first one. During a lesson as a swim teacher, kid, "So do you live here?" Me, "What do you mean?" Kid, "Once the lesson is over, do you like live in this pool?" I thought that was funny. Overheard a young, like 6-ish-year-old boy ask his friend, "Do you have a girlfriend?" The friend says no. Then he responds, "Oh, that's okay. We can share mine." I thought that was funny. And here's the last one. When I was a kid, I told my grandmother that I was an octopus and I wished I could wrap my testicles around her. I missed her so much and wanted to hug. I'm also a female. Oh, poor girl. I shared a quote in the very beginning of this episode, and there's another one that I had, but I couldn't find it for that episode. You guys probably have come across it at some point, but here's the quote. The problem is you think you have time. On average, we get 80 summers, if we're lucky. Don't put off that trip. Stop waiting for life to begin. Stay up late with friends. Get up early to watch the sunrise. Catch every sunset. Book the trip. Go on that hike. Go to the beach. Spend time with those you love. Tell them how you feel. We just never know when it's going to be our last day on earth, right? I try to remind myself of that more. Like with my sister, I really do take that relationship for granted because I see her every single day and I think that's how it's going to be forever. But we just don't know if tomorrow's going to come. Like, am I going to be able to hug her tomorrow? More recently, I've been trying to, remind myself of that when I see her. So when I do hug her, I hug her a little tighter. I don't want to ever wake up and then find out someone is gone. And then I wish that, like, the last time I saw them, I had told them I loved them or I hugged them harder or if I didn't hug them at all, like I wish I did give them a hug, stuff like that. So I don't want to live with that type of regret. So I try to remind myself of that more. And every single day I try to live like, tomorrow might not come. I know it's not the best way to look at life, but I think it helps you to be more present, be more appreciative and grateful for what you have because tomorrow may come and that doesn't mean that everything that you have will still be there. Episode 9, The Trap of Toxic Love. There's a lot here that I left out. So in that episode, I briefly went over toxic behaviors and one of them was gaslighting, right? I was having a conversation with my sister and she said that she gaslights herself. And that got me thinking about myself and whether or not I do that. And I do. I realize that I do. I am toxic towards myself as well. And I didn't even know it. I will downplay what I'm going through because I feel like if I know someone else is going through something, I will tell myself, well, it's much worse for them. Or if I remember something that was traumatic or made me feel horrible, I'll tell myself, oh, like it wasn't that bad. And that's gaslighting. And I did not know that I did this. I don't do this with other people, but I definitely do this with myself. We talked about marriage and relationships and the toxic love and that type of dynamic. People think the only valid reason a person should leave a marriage or relationship is when there's physical abuse. I think it's crazy to me that that's the only reason a person should leave a marriage. And I think that it comes from a traditional outlook on marriage because back in the day, for the most part, women put up with domestic abuse because they didn't have the means to leave, right? So the next generation of women were taught to put up with that. And then somewhere down the line, someone left an abusive marriage. And then more women began to leave a physically abusive marriage. Now, you'll see less women stick around in physically abusive marriages, and people will support her decision on that for the most part. But as society, I don't think we're really educated on abuse as a whole and the different types of behaviors that are considered as abuse and how damaging non-physical abuse is. Emotional abuse can be just as damaging or even worse than physical abuse. Did you guys know that? Just because you physically can't see a scar doesn't mean that it's not there. And emotional scars take much longer to heal. I also think that the people who think couples should stay together if there isn't domestic abuse don't understand or weren't educated about the fact that abuse isn't just physical. And if they are aware of that, then they don't fully understand the depth of what emotional and mental abuse does to a person. And on the other hand, some people who are in abusive relationships where there isn't physical violence, they probably don't even know that abuse is taking place because they don't have the knowledge of what other forms of abuse exist. Because I didn't know. So I'm assuming that there's a lot of other people that don't know either. Or if they're talking about it with their friends, like, this is what's happening to me, this is how he's making me feel, or this is how she's making me feel. If they're talking about it with their friends and family about how they're being treated by their partner, someone in that group is brushing off the behavior like it's not a big deal. And that will fuck with your head because you're going to think and ask yourself, am I making a big deal out of this? And then you will talk yourself into staying because you just think that, oh, other people are going through this and they're still in it, so you try to justify it. There's a quote that I had from Bill Burr that I left out, so I'll share it now. Realize that sleeping on a futon when you're 30 is not the worst thing. You know what's worse? Sleeping in a king bed next to a wife you're not really in love with, but for some reason you're married and you've got a couple of kids and you've got a job that you hate. You'll be laying there fantasizing about sleeping on a futon. There's no risk when you go after a dream. There's a tremendous amount of risk to playing it safe. You're not missing out on anything when you're with the wrong person, period. Someone said that when you make the decision to choose yourself, everything that's meant for you begins to choose you too. So don't be afraid to lose people. Don't be afraid to let the wrong people go. Sometimes we only hold on because we are afraid of the unknown of life without them, maybe even holding on to the familiarity. But the problem is that when we act from a place of fear, we tolerate behaviors that are not good for us, and we repress the level of respect we deserve. Now, ain't that the truth? Here's something that not a lot of people talk about, or maybe they don't look at it from this perspective. After a certain age, you are no longer the product of your environment or how you were raised. It's a personal choice to live the way you do. At some point, blaming your past becomes a distraction from your future. Healing is your responsibility. Growth is your decision. It's a personal choice to live the way you do. You either take ownership of your life or become a prisoner to excuses. The truth is, no one is coming to save you. It's on you to become the person you were never shown how to be. I feel like you could apply that to a lot of things. There are some people out there who will use their past to validate how they show up currently in their life. I've heard a lot of elders use a person's past to justify the behaviors or actions, and they use that as an scapegoat when it's not. You know, if someone is treating you like shit, see it for what it is, and you can only validate what they're like to a certain extent. We've all dealt with our share of trauma or negative experiences, but there comes a time when what's happening to you is really you just allowing it to happen. If you have awareness, having awareness plays a huge part in this, by the way. I've heard so many people make excuses for how they're being treated, and I feel like it's just another way to validate why they keep allowing the behavior to take place instead of thinking of how it's not right and they deserve more. And that could come from a place of low self-esteem, or not feeling worthy of having a better, healthier relationship. I think there's a lot of things at play here as to why some people make excuses for people who treat them like shit. There just comes a time when you have to really separate someone's past and their upbringing to what's really happening. If you know better, do better. Like, you've heard people say that, right? There's a quote that I'm going to share with you guys that should have been added in episode 3, but I think it fits here as well. When you choose a life partner, you're choosing a lot of things, including your parenting partner, and someone will deeply influence your children, your eating companion for about 20,000 meals, your travel companion for about 100 vacations, your primary leisure time, retirement friend, your career therapist, and someone whose day you'll hear about 18,000 times. So choose wisely. If you're stuck, it's time for you to start making changes, and that starts with what you want for yourself. Choosing yourself isn't selfish, you guys. It's necessary and healthy. And this is the last thing I'm going to add for this episode. How would you feel if someone said they could tell how much you love yourself by the partner you've chosen? Think about it for a second. Would that be a compliment or an insult? Would that statement make you proud? Proud of the love you've chosen and the treatment you've accepted? What it comes down to, we accept the love that we think we deserve. So if you're realizing that you might deserve more, you could decide right here, right now, to stop settling for less. I know with episode 9, some of it probably felt like it should have been episode 3, but I think because we're talking about partners and relationships and love, it went well here as well, in my opinion. Now, for the last episode, episode 10, Silent Suffering, Kids in Toxic Homes, I was really nervous about this episode because I know in the Punjabi community, separating and divorce is really frowned upon. I just imagined people who were married with kids telling me that I don't know what I'm talking about and I shouldn't be telling people that they should separate. I shouldn't be advocating for divorce, stuff like that. Essentially, I am breaking up people's hopes with telling people that they should separate or divorce if their relationship is toxic. Because I know family will get involved in our community and convince couples to stay together for the kids. And even if they don't have kids, they'll force them or manipulate them into staying together because they just don't want a divorce to happen in that family. And they don't want the community to be talking about, oh, so and so's kid got divorced. They just don't want that. So they're happy with letting or forcing two unhappy people stay married because they just don't want to ruin their reputation. And one of the other things that I would hear is that when it came to divorce with kids involved, I would hear that kids whose parents get remarried, their new spouse is not going to love their kids as their own. And for a really long time, I thought that was true. I believed that no one could come into your life if you have kids and love your children the way that you love your children or the way a biological parent would love their children. And so you would hear this narrative that like if so and so gets divorced, like the kids are gonna be super miserable and they're not gonna be treated right with the next spouse. But what I've come to learn as I've gotten older is that there are some kids out there who have a better relationship with their stepdad or stepmom compared to their biological parent. So that narrative about someone else loving your kids is never going to be the same is totally false. There's a quote that I didn't add to this episode, and it's such a beautiful one. It really puts everything into perspective. The greatest gift you can give your child is a peaceful home. One where they don't wake up to yelling, where they don't see you disrespected or diminished, where they aren't surrounded by tension, silence, or unspoken pain. It doesn't have to be a house full of people. It might be just the two of you. What matters is that home feels safe because one day they'll build their own, and the way they were loved will shape how they love. And if someone were to argue with this, I would be mind blown because I don't understand how someone can't see that two unhealthy people staying together for the kids is good for everyone. Don't rob your kids of the happiness they deserve and a healthy home just because you're afraid of leaving an unhealthy relationship. If the roles were reversed, would you want that for yourself? And one day your child will sit across from someone and explain to them what it was like to be raised by you. So make sure that that is a story worth telling. So that's it for episode 10. And you guys know that was the last episode of this season in terms of topics that we discussed because episode 11, like I said before, was behind the scenes episode. The hard part of doing this podcast was that I had to do everything on my own. I didn't have any help in editing, locking in guests, finding them, drafting up emails, which was specific to each guest. So that takes time. Creating the content for the Instagram page, scheduling everything so the episodes and posts go live on time and there's a flow. Like all of that I was doing on my own. So that was probably the hard part. The fun part was having the guests on my show because I was really looking forward to having those conversations. And it made me nervous. I was always nervous when I recorded with a guest. Even with my dad, I was nervous. And I don't know why, but I think maybe it's because I just wanted it to be perfect. So that, going in with a mindset that it has to be perfect would make me really nervous. And then also, you guys tuning in and hearing your feedback, that was really nice. it was really, really nice to hear that some of you guys resonated with what I had to say, or you guys didn't see something from the perspective that I was sharing. So that was really beautiful. And I'm always open to constructive criticism, by the way. So if there's anything that I could do to improve on my end, please let me know. I would love to hear it. I do want to thank the guests for coming on the show, Nikki Walton, Baljeet Singh, my dad, because I know you guys all have busy lives, and yeah, you still manage to take some time out and have these discussions with me. So I really, really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Since this is the last episode of the season, I want to leave you with this one reminder that I think will be beneficial for you as your life progresses, because we will all feel this way at some point. I know in the past I felt this way. Whenever your life is feeling stagnant or as if nothing is happening, that means you're being given the time and space to heal and release the baggage that you cannot carry to where you're meant to go soon. So if you are in that space right now, just know that the universe is preparing you for the next level, and certain things have to take place right now in order for you to get to move on. And sometimes we cannot take the people with us to the next phase of our lives, or the issues that we're dealing with, we have to resolve them before we can move on. So whatever that is, you have to deal with it now. And that's why it feels like nothing's happening, because you've got some inner work to do. I will definitely post this on my Instagram page so you guys can save this and look back to it whenever you need to. That's it for this final episode. I hope you guys enjoyed the last 2 behind the scenes episodes. Thank you so much for tuning in every week. I really, really do mean that from the bottom of my heart. Whatever the success looks like for this show, it's all yours. We're building this community together. It's not just me, it's you guys as well. I hope to continue building this community and make a positive impact while I still can. If you're not already following Skip to Saturday on Instagram, please do. I will be updating you guys about the show and the release date for season 2, and everything related to the podcast will be on there. Until then, take care of yourselves, have fun, enjoy life, let go of the things that no longer serve you, surround yourselves with the right people, choose yourself, choose peace, travel as much as you can, be present, and know that you're worthy of everything you've ever dreamed of. So don't give up on yourself. I'll see you guys soon.